Wondering which legendary commander you should go and invest in next? Well, in this video, we're going to update our legendary commander tier list. So whether you are defending your city or you are just trying to make a better canyon team, we will have detailed rankings helping you figure out which of these commanders is worthy of your legendary commander sculptures. So stick around in this video to make the very best investments possible for your account. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, a sponsored content creator for Rise of Kingdoms, and every time new commanders enter into the game, we update our legendary commander tier list. So in this video, we're going to update the tier list for the newest entrants, Cyrus and Nebuchadnezzar. We've also got Herald and Zenobia as new entrants into the list, and we've had a good opportunity to see how they perform. So this is going to be pretty exciting, updating this tier list for these four commanders. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos and guidance on which commanders we think are worthy of your precious legendary commander sculptures. As you know, when we do our tier list, we provide a ranking starting with S tier being the very highest at the top of this scale. Then alphabetically, we go from A down to C, and this ladders directly into our epic tier list so you can compare the legendary commanders to the epic commanders. The categories we will evaluate today include city defense, barbarians and forts, open field, rallying cities, rallying objectives, defending objectives, and also canyon. So that is a solid 7 different categories to help you figure out which of these commanders are worthy of your investment. And it is worth noting, by the way, whether you are in a young kingdom or an old kingdom, this list is relevant to you. Why is that? It seems that the most recent meta in Rise of Kingdoms, a tactic that many players are doing, is to go to an older kingdom for some amount of time, get some of the very best legendary commanders, and bring them back to younger kingdoms to start using them. You'll notice at the top of the screen that there are a couple tiers of timelines in which commanders become usable. Some commanders have no requirement for the age of the kingdom. Commanders like Constantine, Edward, Saladin, and Khan, they are 140 days as the requirement. And then there was another tier of commanders like Attila and Takeda, Guan Yu, YSS, that is 310 days of age for the kingdom age in order to start using these commanders. So if you're in a younger kingdom, this is a useful list so you can see how your commander investments will hold up. If you're in an older kingdom, this is an important list to understand which commanders you might invest in next, because you'll know which ones are most relevant given that all of these commanders are available. Of course, there are timestamps to jump to whichever part of the video you'd like, and at the very end, we'll rank every single commander and give kind of an overall rating. One last thing I do want to mention before we get into the rankings is that I show some up arrows and down arrows indicating whether or not a commander has gained relative strength or lost relative strength compared to what's available. And I will point out that in general, when new commanders become available that are very focused on doing one thing really well, yeah, that does mean that other commanders will lose relative strength compared to the new entrants. So you'll generally see more down arrows indicating that commanders are relatively weaker than they were before when new commanders become available because, yes, that is in fact the case. They are not as strong as they once were. That's not to say that they're bad commanders. That's just to point out that this is a relative scale, and we will always have only one top-tier commander at the S+ tier for each category. So let's get started now with city defense. And I have to say, defending your city is very important. And although a peace shield is really the unbeatable garrison defense, let's talk about the things that you might use if you're purposefully taking a rally or you really want to deter someone from attacking your city. Now, Zenobia is a new entrant, and I actually gave them an S-. The thing about Zenobia is that she is much more focused on infantry specifically. And I prefer commanders for defending your city that give all troop types a really great benefit. So as an example, this skill is giving 40% of infantry stats. And unless you're a mostly infantry stacked city, that really neglects the fact that there are 3 other unit types present. Zenobia also does a lot of healing, which honestly is not all that amazing for defending your city. You're going to at some point just make your hospital overflow. You'd rather the combat end so you can get all your troops back. So I gave her an S-, and I left YSS as my top pick as an S+. It is debatable whether it should be YSS or Theodora as the very best city garrison commander, and I will give Wu Zetian an honorable mention in this category as being very top tier. Those three commanders, YSS, Theodora, and Wu Zetian, are the ones I would most strongly recommend that you use for defending your city. You'll notice I have slightly reduced the rating of commanders like YSG and Charles Martel and Richard I and Constantine. It's not that these are bad commanders, but given the presence of Zenobia, YSS, Theodora, Wu Zetian, all the counters to healing that are available, yes, they are not quite as good as some of the other options that are available. Moving to our next category, Barbarians and Forts, very little has really changed here. The one thing I will call your attention to as we put the rankings up onto the screen is that Nebuchadnezzar does have an amazing area of effect as wide as Ethelflaed's, which means if you are battling barbarians and you're trying to chain lots of barbarians together, he may be a fine choice in order to aggro lots of barbarians onto you. He's also got a little bit of march speed, which is kind of nice if you're bringing archers. What I will call attention to here is that the forts in Heroic Anthem are actually a lot tougher than the barbarian forts that we're used to. Minamoto really earns his S+ designation, and a commander like Double C really is not quite as good as the Minamoto primary. Our next category is open field combat, and I might as well stick with Nebuchadnezzar and Cyrus the Great. Both of them I'm predicting are going to be very, very good in the open field, and I gave both of them an S. They both have march speed, they both have some amount of area of effect damage, or ways to reduce the enemy's effectiveness or cause them to take increased damage. I really like these new archers, and I also really like Herald. Herald has march speed. He gives a real serious punish if you start to swarm him and have multiple troops hitting his march. I've also ranked him as an S. I'm very bullish about these new commanders and their effectiveness in the open field. However, the reigning supreme champion is still going to be Alexander the Great. And although he is an older commander that a lot of people already have, he offers so much utility and strength, cutting, healing, shielding an ally, making other targets take extra damage. He's got march speed. He is doing everything you want in the open field. He is still my favorite choice. On the topic of favorite choices, I have seen Artemisia be used very, very effectively in the open field. The area of effect damage that she offers is really quite nice. With the most recent patch to the way Artemisia works, I believe that she will no longer be severely wounding her own troops when she injures herself with that 300 damage factor on her active skill. So I've bumped her up to an S-. I think she's actually better than I've given her credit for, and that is represented, by the way, in the Ark of Osiris League Grand Championships, where they are bringing this commander right over here to the center brawls, and they have the choice of any commander they want. I have slightly lowered the ranking for Khan and also Richard I in the open field. There are just so many counters to the healing that Richard is doing. I do actually kind of like the Richard and Herald pairing, so maybe there is sort of a breath of fresh life into Richard I in the open field, but S- for Richard is still a great designation for bringing a commander into the open field. His area of effect debuff is quite nice. And Khan, I bumped down to that A+. Also, Double C, I bumped down to that A+, because although these commanders are fairly mobile, the problem with a commander like Khan is that once he's in combat, he's going to be slowed. He's going to get surrounded. He's a glass cannon. We see Khan on the field. We swarm him out. Easy peasy. He's gone. So it's a tough commander to bring because he just doesn't have the tankiness to hang. Let's go now to our next category, which is rallying cities. And this is a category where not much has changed. I will call attention to the fact that I think these new commanders, Cyrus and Nebuchadnezzar, could potentially be very good for rallying cities. I've put them at an S-. It's possible they will be stronger. I think that Herald is potentially good for rallying cities as well. I've given him an S-, although I'm probably more bullish about the new archers than I am about Herald for hitting a city. I have also slightly lowered the ranking of Frederick I. He's fine for swarming a city, and if that's what this ranking was for, I'd actually put him a good bit higher. But honestly, like, Frederick I has some great single target damage, but that's really where the value of Frederick I starts and ends. I still do feel that Mehmed is a heavily underutilized commander for rallying cities. People seem to turn to Esong as a secondary in a lot of situations when they probably should be turning to Mehmed. That may be because they're just used to using Esong in rallies, or it might be that they just don't have their Mehmed expertise yet. But the amount of damage that Mehmed does to cities is astonishing and honestly, I think underleveraged. The next category, and this is arguably going to be one of the most popular to watch, is rallying objectives. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. The Attila Takeda crown. The Attila Takeda crown is now up for grabs. They've held this for many seasons, being S+ tier in my estimation. I've bumped them down to S tier. They're very strong still. They're hard to swarm. They have great sustain. However, I don't know what the new S+ is going to be, particularly for Heroic Anthem. I don't have that answer. I can tell you that I think Esong is still solid. I think Ramses is still solid as a commander. I can tell you that I think Harold has a lot of potential. I've given him an S-. And I can tell you that I think the new commanders, Cyrus and Nebuchadnezzar, I think that they may be the thing we need to be talking about for new rallies. A part of the reason I continue to go all in on the new legendary archer set equipment. These commanders hold a lot of promise for being the new rally combo. I have also slightly bumped down our estimation of Chandragupta. He never really came into stride as a commander that was unquestionably the very best. In fact, I haven't put my sculptures back into him because honestly, Attila Takeda seemed to be doing about as fine as Attila Chandra or Khan Chandra. And okay, you could potentially squeeze out some more damage with Khan Chandra if you completely own the field. But guess what? If you already completely own the field and you're fully uncontested, it kind of doesn't matter too much what you were going to rally with at that point. You've already won. Defending objectives is a category where we have seen a major shakeup, and that is, of course, Zenobia as the new S+ champion for defending structures. Honestly, I am astonished how effective she seems to be, particularly in Ark of Osiris, but also in regular gameplay. I do feel that she is probably less suited to handle a multi-rally situation. And in a multi-rally context, I probably would lean back to our previous S+ tier commanders, YSS and Theodora, who are still very exceptional. I have bumped them down to an S. YSS and Theodora, very, very solid. And I honestly love that you just don't care what troops people bring. Yes, you stack your equipment for one troop type. So yes, you want people to bring a certain type of troop, but does it kill the garrison to have the wrong thing? No. And I like that a lot about the ease of use of these commanders. I have left Charles Martel as an S tier, and I do really question that a little bit. I think Charles Martel with Zenobia is pretty strong. However, if you're going all in on infantry, the thing that Charles Martel is really struggling with is defending against archers. If you see a Charles Martel in the garrison, chances are that rallying whatever they've got with some archers is going to obliterate them and they won't know what happened. Well, now they will, but they will get completely wrecked. We have used this strategy ourselves in KVK and Ark of Osiris. If you use a Charles garrison, prepare to get wrecked by archers. It's just a fact. But if they don't rally you with archers, especially if they continue to send commanders like Attila Takeda, yeah, your Charles Martel, he's going to get you some value, baby. We have slightly lowered our estimation of Richard I, YSG, and also Constantine for garrisoning. Interestingly enough, although Constantine was really good against Attila Takeda, he is not performing very well with Zenobia, and I think that's in part because he is reducing the effectiveness of healing once you get below 50%, and Zenobia is all about healing, so that's a really awkward pair. We have slightly lowered, again, his ranking to account for that. I personally plan to expertise Zenobia probably within the next 24 hours. So I'll be putting my money where my mouth is on this one. She's really very exceptional. Our final category today is evaluating how commanders perform in Sunset Canyon, and it should not be surprising that I still think YSG is the very best. YSG is basically mandatory. You can position him to hit 4 of the enemy's marches in almost every circumstance. That is astonishingly good. He is elevating the skill damage a huge amount. YSG is the jam, and he is arguably, in fact, according to all of my guidance, the first commander I think everyone should go invest in as a legendary. From there, it's important that we talk about how these new entrants will potentially perform. And I do think that the area of effect damage from Nebuchadnezzar will make him a slam dunk pairing with a commander like YSG. They are going to do so much damage in the back lane. It is absolutely ridiculous. I also really like Cyrus the Great. He's doing a couple things that people will underestimate. He's going to make the target take more damage, and also he is going to make the target deal less skill damage, which is a big deal in that game mode. I really like Cyrus the Great, even though he's not doing as much area of effect damage. Once he starts to be attacked, he will be doing this sweet AoE damage, and I might use him maybe in the off lane, where I've got my Edward El Cid now. I might replace with Edward and then Cyrus as the secondary. In a perfect world, I'd rather have a commander like Ramses, who, by the way, retains a really strong ranking in this game mode. And since we are talking about archers, I have bumped up the ranking of Artemisia. I undervalued her area of effect damage. It's ridiculously good. It's a lot of damage, hitting a lot of targets, and people that use Artemisia do find that she is working very well for them. Herald is a new entrant into our list, and you saw that recently I actually expertised this commander. I really think that Herald has a strong role to play here. His counterattack damage is really good if you're going to put him in a front line, which I think is where he belongs. That'll make him do area of effect damage, which is amazing in this game mode. And speaking of damage, yeah, his 4th skill makes him do a lot of skill damage and a lot of area of effect damage, quite frankly. He's very strong, and I've rated him as an S. There are a few commanders for whom I've slightly lowered their rankings, and that includes Khan and also Chandragupta. The problem with both of these commanders is they're kind of glass cannons, and they do too much single target damage rather than area of effect damage. They're fine commanders, and you can use them. I just don't think they perform as well as your other options. Now we have the pleasure of presenting every commander in a single view with everything we've talked about so far. This is a lot of information we're going to put up onto the screen. It should not be surprising to anyone that I think that YSG is still the very best legendary in the game. Go invest in him, and it's a phenomenal, phenomenal addition to your account. Attila Takeda, still S tier. Alexander the Great, right up near the top, possibly in the realm of bumping ahead of Attila Takeda and pushing toward that YSG rank as the very best of the best. Cyrus and Nebuchadnezzar, I'm extremely bullish, will be very top tier. Archers will finally have, in my estimation, a more dominant role, which we will find out in the coming weeks how that actually plays out. I did bump Ramses up in the rankings slightly. I think I have underestimated how effective he is in a number of situations, so I think he deserves that S tier. William retaining a very top spot as the best of the S- category. I think it's possible he might even be deserving of getting bumped up higher for how effective his buff is. It's freaking amazing. It's absolutely amazing when you are in a group fight. Charles Martel holding a huge amount of value in Rise of Kingdoms. Chandragupta, although I don't think he's phenomenal for rallies or the open field in particular, he still is a very strong commander in those regards and deserves still an S-. Constantine retaining an S- designation. Guan Yu possibly should get bumped up to an S tier. However, he never really became a rally leader, a premier rally leader in the game, and so I've left him as an S-. He is very strong, however, and is a great investment for your account. Herald clocks in my estimation, as an S-. It is possible he will be very valuable for rallies that are long-running, which we'll only really get to see how good that is or isn't in Kingdom versus Kingdom. And yeah, we'll know really soon what that looks like if it is a thing, as Pass 4 will be opening for us very, very soon. Saladin, Richard, Edward, Leonidas, Artemisia, Khan, all retaining an S-. Khan at the very bottom of that S- list, retaining it in large part because he is so good for PvE objectives. That's player versus environment. He's good in Ceroli. He's good in ballads. Heck, he's even good for rallying the ruined Crusader fortress. In terms of garrison commanders here, you'll notice that I have an N designation for Zenobia, YSS Theodora, and Wu Zetian. They have a niche role to play in the game. They're really just here to defend structures. It's not fair to compare them on the same scale as all those other commanders that are useful in so many other game modes. Similarly, I've got Charlemagne on this list, but he's kind of a joke. He's kind of a meme. I mean, maybe he's better for rallying cities than I'm giving him credit for, but that's the one thing you might use him for, maybe. Sort of. With all of that said, this sort of a video takes a very long time to prepare, so if you could do me a huge favor, throw a like on the video if you enjoyed this, and let me know down below in the comments, what did you think of our overall rankings and ratings of these commanders? Do these hit the mark? Are they slightly off? Which things need adjustment? This is a living, breathing list, and the link you'll find in the description for the ROK toolkit that I provide 100% ad-free in a spreadsheet that anyone can go look at, make a copy of, and then make their own changes, calculations, or do whatever they'd like to understand how you get more value from Universal Commander Wheels and Esmeralda and all that sort of good stuff. Consider subscribing if you haven't already to see exactly how good some of these commanders are in all kinds of game modes. I'm most excited, by the way, for battling in the open field with William. That is going to be a lot of fun. Also, bringing Harold to smash in the open field. I've got him level 40 for now, but I'm probably going to take him up to 60. Anyways, you'll see that all unfold on the channel very, very soon in Kingdom vs. Kingdom. I'm looking forward to showing that to you. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.